News Channel 8 presents New Skills for Living with your host, Tom Lavin. A healthy plan for healthy living.
Hello, I'm Tom Lavin. Welcome to New Skills for Living, a show dedicated to healing and wholeness in our community. If you or a loved one has ever suffered with depression or anxiety or trauma, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or a substance abuse issue, you'll want to watch our show today. We have two wonderful guests to discuss these topics. To my far left is Dr. Rita Harris. Dr. Harris is board certified in psychiatry as well as addiction medicine, and she is the medical director of Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services. Dr. Harris, thank you so much for being here. And to my immediate left is Donna Marie Long, and Donna Marie has come to share with us her life experience, and we're really grateful that Donna Marie is here. Donna Marie, thank you for being here.
Sure.
Yeah. And so, Donna Marie, let me ask you first, can you share a little bit of your life story with us, please?
Yes. I believe I have always had these problems. I believe, or challenges is a better word for it. As a child, I remember having trouble with numerals, like a dyslexia only with numerals. But there was nowhere to take me. There was no special ed. My parents are of the generation, you don't talk about mental illness and you don't talk about challenges. So I had to learn to make it on my own. The problem with that is that even though I did quite well in spite of a mind that didn't want to think in one direction, a mind that wanted to go this way and that way, to pull it together takes time. So the one thing I always had a problem with was time management. And it was because I was fighting my brain that would not allow me to just follow one clear path. And I was pretty much on my own. For whatever reason, we moved a few times. So even if a school had built a program, I wouldn't have been there long enough to take advantage of it. And I don't think there really were programs even throughout my high school years. They all came after that. The other problem was that I hadn't gone into this much in the past, but my parents were of a faith that didn't believe in any other healing other than faith healing. I mean, it was mainstream. I don't want to narrow the talk, but so that was another factor that even if my parents had opened their minds, their faith wasn't going to let them help me. So I was brought up in that faith, and I let it go by the wayside because I didn't feel that was right.
So you're at NAMS as a client, and you're working with Dr. Camper. Can you share a little bit with us about your diagnosis and the medications that you're on?
I can, and I came to a realization when I had finished going to college, got a teaching credential, worked with the next generation of kids, I saw a likeness myself to what they were going through. And that made me realize there is something out there. I don't have to just fight this for my entire life. So it was the situation where I could not pay my health insurance anymore and ended up literally broke and had nowhere to turn. My daughter made some phone calls for me. And she was sure there was something out there. Her generation looks for it immediately. So she went out and found me the county program, who sent me over to Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services. And at my age now, I am finally getting the best help, the only help I've ever had.
Oh, yeah. And can you tell us a little bit then about, like, you've been working with your doctor and kind of coming up with a diagnosis, which kind of describes someone's problems, and then medications to help. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Diagnosis is partly observation. A great part of it is observation. And my doctor had to watch me and see what were my behaviors. And she diagnosed me as possibly bipolar because I do get very high sometimes, but I get low, or at the least adult attention deficit disorder is what I have, which leads to OCD. And my OCD is of the type where I hang on to everything. Mm-hmm. Very hard to let go of something.
Yeah. And are you finding the help that you're receiving, has it helped you and made a difference in your life?
Oh, beyond belief. Mm-hmm. First of all, the medications settle down my thought processes, work with the synapses so that they're not just racing around, but they're slow and steady, and I can focus on something. Also, my mood. Would you like me to say the actual medicines that I'm on? Okay, well, for example, XR for me is amazing at how it improves my mood. And I feel buoyed up and I feel confident and I don't feel just kind of down and dragging around like I can feel. Okay. But that's only part of it. There's another brand new medication that sends a capsule, you recognize this, through my body that we're going to try now, that will let medication go out throughout my body. And the thing about it is it doesn't go filter through my liver or my kidneys, because I do have physical problems with that, and it'll even bypass that.
Okay. And of course you're finding that helpful. And Dr. Harris, maybe just in about 30 seconds to wrap up this segment, can you maybe reflect on some of the things that you heard in terms of mental illness and recovery from mental illness in this half minute?
Yes, well, I heard Donna address some of the major areas of life. Biologically, she's working with her doctor to get her medications stabilized, and psychologically, she's working through some of her issues with her family and her early development, and how the stigma in her family against addressing mental illness or getting treatment worked against her for most of her life. And she's talking about some of the social aspects she's now involved in part of her recovery. And so those are the main areas we address now in recovery from mental illness: the biological, psychological, social, and spiritual aspects of illness.
Great. Well, that was some wonderful sharing on behalf of Donna Marie and Dr. Harris's wrap-up. After this brief break, we're going to talk with Dr. Harris more to focus in on the biopsychosocial model of illness and recovery. New Skills for Living. As part of this series, The Faces of Mental Health, our guests today are helping us better understand mental illness in terms of how it begins in someone's life and then also how it's addressed. And the medical director from Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, Dr. Rita Harris. Rita, you were saying at the end of the last segment about the biopsychosocial model, where those elements each contribute to the onset of the illness possibly, and then each of those needs to be addressed in the recovery process. Could you expand on that a little bit, please?
Well, biologically, there is a known genetic component, particularly Donna Marie mentioned bipolar disorder, which is an illness that is very much known to have a genetic component to it. Psychologically, trauma in early life can certainly contribute to the onset of mental illness. Socially, we know that kids want to be included, and Donna Marie mentioned how she moved around a lot with her family and felt somewhat excluded from some things, some programs that she might have otherwise been able to benefit from. And so when a mental illness manifests itself, just as there's probably been biological components, psychological components, and social components to it, we have to address all of these areas. Donna Marie was sharing with me that she finally got treatment for her illness about a year ago, only a year ago, and she's been working with a doctor on stabilizing medications to try to help the biological components of the brain disease of a severe mental illness like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or obsessive compulsive disorder. She shared with me that she's working with a service coordinator, a social worker, who helps her both navigate the paperwork of getting into some of the programs she's benefited from, and also has helped counsel her in terms of some of her physical ailments. And this has become a really important relationship for Donna. Socially, Donna Marie talked about how she's now engaging in a church and developing some friendships and not feeling like she's all alone in the world. And so she, as she's expressed it, has benefited in all of these areas in the past year.
Yes, very well put. Nice summary. Donna Marie, now we have about a minute left in this segment. It sure is going fast. One of the things Dr. Harris talked about was not being alone anymore. In just a minute, can you talk about how important that is to feel connected and not feel alone?
Well, everyone in the program has made me feel that way. The person who's in charge of vocational help, and I may go back and work in the schools, has been terrific that way. But I want to say that I have a friend who is also going through what I'm going through, and I'm going through what he's going through, and we're able to talk about and be anything and be ourselves. And I've never had a friend like that in my whole life, I guess because I never understood myself, so I couldn't be a friend to somebody else.
Yes, yes. That is well put and very generous on your part. We have about 30 seconds, Dr. Harris. Is there anything that you'd want to summarize about this, for this segment about biopsychosocial recovery?
Well, I think that if any part of that is ignored, the person is not going to feel like they've really achieved what they can achieve. They can't focus on just medications and ignore the psychological aspects of their illness, ignore their social life. But the biological component has to be there as well.
Yes.
Without that, as Donna Marie said, she can't focus her mind, her thoughts race.
Yes.
And so it does take the complete treatment of the person as a whole in order to achieve any real good results.
Okay. That is some very helpful information. And after this brief break, we'll return and talk about more about the recovery process with mental illness. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to New Skills for Living. As part of this series entitled Faces of Mental Health, one of the things that people have shared and research has shown is that feeling understood, feeling cared for, and not being judged is a really important part of the recovery process. And Donna Marie, you're willing to share a little bit about what that experience is like, both being someone who's understood and cared for, and then also caring for others. Could you share with us, please?
Sure. When I substituted, I always volunteered to work with the kids that a lot of people wouldn't work with because they had problems which often became behavioral problems. Sometimes they would act out and become wild for people, but it never happened for me. And I always believed that was because I walked in the door knowing how they felt. And having a friendship develop between them and me while I'm overseeing them, but to tell them that I have my mental illness issues too. And although I probably didn't use that terminology, but they knew, they know, and it was amazing. It like we bonded and we hated to say goodbye.
Oh, that's beautiful. So,
and I think it just meant that understanding just means so much.
Yeah. Dr. Harris, would you want to comment on that dynamic in recovery?
Well, I think so many people with mental illness feel like they're the only person experiencing what they experience. They think everybody else is out there living a normal life and only their mind is not working for them properly. And when they make that connection, and that's what's been so important about some of our programs like the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill, and we now have within Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, we have consumers helping consumers. And I think making that connection that you are not the only person that is struggling with this brain disease, that other people are too, somehow lightens the burden of feeling like you're the only person out there with it.
Yeah. So that sense of connection is real important. And we have about a minute left, Donna Marie. Could you talk about how have you made some connections over at NAMS with people?
Well, starting with my coordinator, we talked about her. She's wonderful, but it's the people she sent to me to who work there, like the person who's in charge of vocational help, because she helped me get out in the world again before she didn't just send me out on a job, although we're getting to that. The truth is that we were just both in the same position, sitting on a park bench, my friend and I, and just got talking, had some food together because he had a barbecue going, and that was the way it started.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Donna Marie. So after this brief break, we're going to come back for the next segment and continue to talk about recovery. And welcome back to New Skills for Living. As we continue our discussion about recovery from mental illness, I would like to ask Dr. Harris, two important aspects that I've heard you mention are the vocational aspect of recovery and the family aspect of recovery. Can you share your thoughts with us on that, please?
Well, as Donna Marie has told us, it is extremely important to her that she has a connection with her 25-year-old daughter, and that having a connection is just a human need. She also shared with me that although her father was of the generation that would never acknowledge mental illness, just in the past year, her father, although she says he whispers it under his breath, does acknowledge that she's a patient receiving services at Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services. And it seems important to her that he will at least acknowledge that for her. I think that if families can accept a family member with a mental illness, can just show some emotional support, it makes all the difference for the person who's struggling with it. Vocationally, you know, we all feel a need to be needed. We all want to have a purpose that we identify with. And Donna Marie shared that she's taking the steps toward doing some volunteer work and maybe even some occupational work down the line, and that getting introduced to computers has stimulated her mind, helped her learn how to focus. And I think that that's a very important part of recovery, is feeling that you have a purpose beyond yourself.
Yeah. And of course, that's an important thing too, that the role of being someone who contributes to life and is not just receiving. That whole idea that Dr. Viktor Frankl referred to about no longer just being a patient, but being an agent, being someone who's contributing to society as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that sense of contributing and making a difference and not just receiving?
Well, I think that it's human nature, and that it's a part of us that has to be nurtured, our ability to be productive in life. And Donna Marie's made a very good example of that, saying how when she worked with the children, she learned by helping them how to help herself.
Yes. Yeah, well put. Donna Marie, can you talk with us just a little bit now about what your goals are in terms of work as you're looking at this next era of your life?
I was just thinking that here I'm turning 60, and I'm off in a new place in my life,
Yes.
and it's a good place. So I want to go back to the schools and work with the young kids, and I'm good at it, and they make me happy, and I think it will fulfill that need in me. If you don't mind, I'd like to just finish with also saying it's a new era in my life to be very close to my dad and my brother now that my mom and my grandma are gone. Yeah. And but I see that improving a great deal also.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Rita, for anyone who is at home and they've been watching and maybe they've identified for themselves or another family member, we have about 30 seconds. What is it that you would like to say to them about dealing with mental illness and not letting things get in the way?
Well, I guess I'd like to say that the first step is to reach out. And we're lucky in Northern Nevada. We have a lot of resources, and here in Reno and Sparks, we have NAMS, but also there's rural clinics, and if you're struggling, reach out for help.
That's a great way for us to end the show. We want to thank you for joining us, and we'll hope you'll come back next month where we'll focus on families and recovery from mental illness. Take good care of yourself, and thank you very much to Dr. Rita Harris and Miss Donna Marie Long. Thank you both very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.